Welcome back to day 2 of the Cost Action CUPID conference. We're delighted that you're all here, and it really is fantastic to have everyone here as we celebrate, as we head towards the conclusion of our Cost Action project. So I'm going to hand over very shortly to Bilge, who is going to chair the session. But I just wanted to say to you there's been a slight change in the schedule for this afternoon. We're going to reconvene at 2 p.m. rather than 2:15, and we are going to be including the session from yesterday, which we moved to today, the taster from the training school. So that will take place this afternoon. And just to say as well, we will be welcoming some of the officials from the Cost Office this afternoon. They want to see what we've been up to and hear all about everything we've been doing and our achievements. So I hope that you'll all be here to meet the Cost Office officials. It's very important that we're here and that we show them what we've been doing. So thank you all very much for that.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Sarah Collen. Sarah Collen is the policy manager at the European Association of Urology and co-chair of the European Cancer Organization's Inequalities Focused Topic Network. She has more than 25 years experience working in Brussels on advocacy and EU funding. Initially working in development and humanitarian aid, she has been active in health advocacy since 2012. We are very pleased to have her today with us, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure for me to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I think you came through the European Cancer Organization, where I co-chair the Inequalities Network. So this is obviously an action, CUPID is an action that's really valuable and impactful for our work in the Cancer Organization. I'm going to speak a little bit with both hats on, so the Cancer Inequalities Network chair, but also, I'm not a urologist, just to let you know, I'm not a doctor, but I work with representing the medical profession of urology here in Brussels. And urologists will be part of the multidisciplinary team for about 1/3 of all cancers. So bladder, kidney and prostate cancer are probably the main ones, other rarer forms of cancer as well. So we're really interested in and engaged with all policy decisions, and I will focus mainly at European level that impact cancer and cancer inequalities. Before I start, I think you've already done through this network an audit of cancer policies or guidelines at national and European level that show that there are some significant policy gaps in the themes that you're working on: intellectual disabilities, inclusion, non-discrimination, and then access to healthcare, and in your case, specifically cancer prevention. And I would say that still, unfortunately, you will see that still rings true, but there are some good news, and I think what I've been asked to do is to give a few pointers of some of the main European policy frameworks that you can use to your advantage. So either in your own countries or in your European collective networks. Just a note from my side is that I deal more with the public health or the healthcare policies at European level. And it tends to be that rights, discrimination, anti-discrimination and inclusion sits more comfortably in a different policy framework at European level called the social pillar. So you have two reasonably siloed policy streams. One, public health policy where cancer sits, and then one social pillar where the rights of people with disabilities, anti-discrimination, social inclusion fits. But the good news is that the Commission, the European Commission, one of the major decision-making bodies at Europe, is aware of that and is trying to through some of its policies to make the bridges between public health and the social policy. And one of the main projects that I'm sure you've heard of is the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, which was published in 2021, so it's now 5 years into implementation. Now, this was a really broad-ranging strategy trying to take a whole-of-government approach to how can we tackle cancer for European citizens. And it started from prevention, onto diagnosis, treatment and care, and through to survivorship. Not only looking at public health policies, healthcare, but also more broadly around tobacco legislation, alcohol labelling, food labelling, and also prevention, screening strategies. And then also on the survivorship end, thinking about access to financial services. The plan is broad, had many initiatives, and was aligned with a separate thing called the Europe's Cancer Mission. Now, this was all about invigorating, with a very moonshot, high-level vision on invigorating research and innovation in cancer. So you've had over the past 5 years, 2 really important, significant initiatives by the European Commission on cancer. One strategic policy initiative and one significant funding pot for research and innovation. And as I said, the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan tackles prevention, both from the primary prevention, so tobacco, trying to create measures to create a smoke-free Europe, healthier diets, promoting health literacy, tackling pollution and hazardous chemicals and cancer carcinogens or cancer chemicals, but also looking at screening policies. And the European Union has some cancer screening recommendations. Those hadn't been updated since 2003. So the first cancer screening recommendations called for cancer screening programs in breast, colorectal, and cervical cancer. So those may have been ongoing in your countries now for a number of years or even more recently. And Europe's Beating Cancer Plan revised those. So set new targets for those, for that breast, colorectal, and cervical programs, screening programs, but then added 3 new cancer types to be considered, not for immediate uptake, but maybe for European countries to think, how do we go about maybe piloting or seeing how this fits in our country? So they've added prostate, gastric in very certain populations and situations, and lung cancer screening. And I stand here with my own organisation, the European Association of Urology. After the recommendations, some funding was available at European level, and we lead the prostate cancer screening project on that. So that is known as Praise You, and we're now coming to the end of our first period, and we'll continue hopefully as of September with the next period. But we also have 6 sister projects, one on lung, SOLAS, and one on the gastric cancer on TOGAS. We're all members and associated with ECHO, so I think it's a really good, ECHO, the European Cancer Organisation, is a really good organisation for you to remain in touch with. And please do remain in touch with me and with us for Praise You, because what we're doing is really trying to implement pilot prostate cancer screening programs in different areas across the EU. Currently, we have 2 areas in Spain, a pilot in Lithuania, one in Ireland, and also one in Poland. So can see members of the room that will have a pilot going on in your country. And those programmes, those projects, will feed into European Commission work on cancer screening guidelines. So there's already European initiatives on breast, colorectal and cervical cancers, and they're just beginning on lung, prostate and gastric. So really important opportunities for you, I think, as a network to feed your expertise and your knowledge on this overlooked group, I think, and to say, look, something needs to be done, and to make sure that the guidelines that come up at European level reflect the needs of the communities that you work with. And leading on to the inequalities piece rather than the prevention piece, Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, as I said earlier, tried to really bridge that gap to a certain extent as much as possible with the more social policies and anti-discrimination rights-based policies of the social pillar. So they have a specific chapter on cancer inequalities. And I think this is when they don't only talk about inequalities between different countries in Europe, but also the inequalities that you face because you're a different gender, or you're living with disabilities, or you have different caregiving needs, or you're from a different ethnicity. And with that, one of the topics, one of the areas of work, one of the deliverables under that inequalities bit was a guideline on reducing the barriers and increasing the access to healthcare for people with disabilities. Not only intellectual disabilities, but disabilities more broadly. And I would say that guideline can be used as, it's a non-binding tool, but it can be used by your networks to say, these are important topics that we should be living up to in our own countries and also at European level. Very usefully, also, the European Commission has developed a European Cancer Inequalities Registry, and it's a great data tool. A lot of the national statistics and then regional statistics, so you can basically go online and pull down a lot of the data sets that might be relevant to your work. You will find intellectual disabilities are missing from that, though, so to know that there is a gap there. But there are some country profiles, so you can see how your own country is doing, and use those country profiles as a tool with your own governments to map where there are gaps. I also want to touch on, I think you had a member of the European Parliament opening your event yesterday. I wanted to touch on where I think you should orientate yourself in terms of our elected European politicians. And there are two intergroups. So the intergroups are more interest groups on thematic areas. And again, a bit siloed in approach. There's one on an intergroup on disability, and there's also an intergroup on cancer. And I would say trying to bring those two groups together is really important for your work, and to try and show that both policy themes are really relevant and interconnected and mutually reinforcing. But there you have a list of lots of members of the European Parliament. They're all publicly available, where you have a natural interest from those members. They've actually had to sign up to this, so they are your political representatives who are most interested in the themes that you're dealing with. And then there are two formal parliamentary committees that would touch on cancer and cancer prevention, and also on intellectual disabilities. That's the Public Health Committee and also the Social Affairs and Employment Committee. The European Council, which is where our governments come together to discuss and make decisions, they also tackle both disabilities and cancer, Europe's Beating Cancer Plan. And often each European presidency, that's like a chair of the European Union Council every 6 months, will have events, one on disability and maybe one on cancer policy, but often they don't come together. So this is just to say that unfortunately we have a bit of a siloed approach, but Europe's Beating Cancer Plan is trying to bridge those. But to bear in mind that these can be really, presidency events can be really good opportunities to highlight issues at a very high profile level. And we're in the Cyprus presidency at the moment. They had a conference on disabilities just in May. Before that, there was one in Copenhagen, and Ireland will be taking up the presidency as of 1st of July. So good to keep an eye on what they have planned and to highlight it. If they've done nothing, discuss with them and ask them why. I'm going to take a time just to give some case studies of how the European Cancer Organisation, which is an umbrella network of medical societies that are involved in the cancer care pathway. We also work with patient advocates as well, to see how we work on the theme of cancer inequalities together. We have several networks, and cancer inequalities is one of them. I'd like to highlight that we, alongside the official European Commission Cancer Inequalities Registry, ECHO also produces the European Cancer Pulse. I think this is a real opportunity for your CUPID network to feed in the data and the infosets, the data sets that you have coming from your partners. We can map across multiple inequalities, and your data helps us to increase the impact and highlight where there are gaps in care delivery and in terms of cancer outcomes. So please bear the European Cancer Pulse in mind when you have public outcomes that you would like to share. Please also do ping them over to the European Cancer Team, and I know you already have that relationship with them. So you can pull down multiple data sets, and we also have the possibility of indexes, cancer policy indexes on certain themes. At the moment, we have a Women and Cancer Policy Index and also a Cancer Screening Policy Index. And we can look at there are also different national fact sheets that support that. So you can pull down information on your own country. We have about 10 member states covered at the moment. Another couple of examples of how the Inequalities Network can work and the kind of work that we can do to keep in mind for future initiatives is that we can produce policy documentation on given themes. This is an example of the Women and Cancer Project, where we've produced policy action papers and worked on a call for action. We also linked that with the Cancer Pulse Women and Cancer Policy Index. We also have a Men and Cancer Project, similar kind of setup where we have a policy document and then the calls to action. And then all of these are usually launched in public or parliamentary events where we highlight specific issues and make the call and the specific recommendations. And this is just to say to you that the doors very much are open to you and to the members of your action network. Please do let us know where you have public results, where you have recommendations. Do feed them in, and then we will make sure that we incorporate those into the calls that we're making on the specific themes. We're really, really open to continue the relationship and look forward to doing that in the future, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Sarah? Do you have Turkey in your association? We know we are not a member, but still for this kind of activities, I think, yeah, we are a huge country and there are a lot of people. So, what do you think? Is closer?
So it's not an EU member state,
Yeah,
but
no,
absolutely
I know.
we would, the European Cancer Organisation certainly does work with partners in beyond Europe and the broader Europe, WHO Europe region as well. So very much, yeah, a broader outlook than just the EU 27.
So if they can contact you, then it would
Certainly,
work.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
In terms of the EU presidency coming part,
Really enjoyed your talk, thank you. In terms of the EU presidency coming to Ireland, what would you think is one approach that we could take as, you know, researchers and advocates in order to try and yield a response? Because there's going to be so many competing responsibilities and competing demands, and that, what, in your experience, could we do in order to try and get more of a response?
Yeah, so I think probably at this stage now it's to look at what's on their agenda already, and a lot of their agendas will be public. They'll have some high-level conferences that are already announced, and I would look and see how you can say, well, there's something that could fit into this policy agenda. And probably, I would say, in Ireland, your best contact would be maybe through some of your MEPs, who will be really active and wanting to promote themselves a little bit during the presidency. I know that I think next week, Maria Walsh, I think one of the MEPs, has an event on women's health. So I would go along to that, and I would make the case from a women's health perspective on why she should. I think it's an open event, you know. So I would tag on to what's already in place now, and also I think you can try and meet with there's like hundreds of Irish in Brussels at the moment working on the presidency. So if you can try and get a contact there, then. Yeah, formulating those informal links can be really worthwhile. And for those, the presidencies are online. I can never remember the right order, but I think it's Lithuania next. But have a little look. I think Italy. You've got Italy here somewhere as well. They're coming up soon as well. Have a little look in advance and think, well, have we got any friendly member states? Do we have any friendly ministries of health that we could work with, or politicians that we could work with, and think about how we can contribute? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Then thank you for your presentation. And,